Hello and welcome to our 10th video in our series on statistics. I'm Mr. Chowdhury and today we're going to be looking at pie charts. So hopefully you know what a pie chart is already. You would have looked at it maybe in primary schools. A pie chart is a way of representing data like they were slices of pie. So it shows proportionally how much each category of a data set has with regards to the other ones. That's what a pie chart is. Okay, so here's what we're going to do before we look at any pie charts, before we do anything else with pie charts. The first thing I'd like you to do is fill in these function machines. So for example, inside each of these boxes, you're going to put the operation that happens to get from the first number to the last number. So for example, to get from 36 to 360, I multiply by 10. And I'd like you to do that for the rest of these questions, please. So pause the video, have a go at that. Okay, so now let's have a look at these answers. So here are the answers for each one of these questions. You'll notice that for the two-step ones, you have to do two things. So for example, to get from 144 to 360, we divide by 12, then we times by 30. Just make our life a lot easier. You should have noticed also that all of the answers at the end are 360. And I've done that for a very specific reason, and it will make a lot of sense moving on. So today we're going to be concentrating mainly on drawing pie charts. How can we draw a pie chart? So before we do anything, you just need to ask yourself one question before we do anything else. The question you need to ask yourself is this: if I have a pie chart which is made up of a circle, it's a circle, how many degrees are inside that? If you said 360, you're correct. So we need to know that there are 360 degrees in a full circle, and that's going to be really important for us when we're working with pie charts. And that's why in this first task, all of the end values are 360. Right, so now let's have a look at how we can draw pie charts, because we've got that understanding in our head that we're going to have to work with 360 degrees. Okay, so here is our first question that we're going to work with. Here's our first question that we're going to work with. So we have 36 students and they're taking part in a study about the types of movies they like. And here are the results, and I've got them in a table. So 5 students like comedy, 7 students like horror, 14 students like rom-coms, and 10 students like other genres of movies. And obviously my total is 36. Now, I know that I'm going to have to work out how many degrees each of these categories takes up on my pie chart so I can represent it proportionally. So to do that, I need to think about how many degrees are there in a circle. And we said that there are 360. So I'm going to add another section, another column to my table, and I'm going to call it degrees. And I need to try and populate this column. I need to try and put some values in here so I know how many degrees to plot in my pie chart. I know how many degrees comedy is going to take up. I know how many degrees horror is going to take up, and so on and so forth. So to do that, here's what I'm going to do. Pause the video. What can you see with regards to the numbers that might be a really big indication to how we can work out the degrees? Okay, pause the video, have a think. Okay, so what you should have noticed is that to get from 36 to 360, I need to multiply by 10. That means if I want to work out how many degrees I need for other, I'm just going to multiply by 10. Because the total to 360 degrees is times it by 10. So that means each one of these categories, if I multiply them by 10, I'll figure out how many degrees I need for my pie chart. So pause the video, figure out what the degrees are for the rest of this table. Okay, so by working out the degrees, you've actually done the hardest part of drawing a pie chart, which is finding out what proportion of the pie chart each one of the categories gets. So the degrees for this one would be 50, 70, 140, and 100, and the pie chart would look like this. And we will, in a bit, look at how we can draw a pie chart. But for now, what we're working on is how to find the degrees, because like I said, this is the bit that requires the most mathematical thinking. Okay, is finding the degrees that we need to plot. What proportion of the whole pie chart does comedy take, and so on and so forth. So I've got this, it's very clear, you can read it very easily. Biscuits, it's all color coded, there's percentages on there. You don't need to have the percentages, but it's just there to give you a bit more information. So here's another table, but this time I have 100 students taking part in the study, and it's about what snacks they like. Okay, so I've got 100 students taking part, and it's about what snacks they like. I know, because I'm going to draw a pie chart, I need to have a degrees column. So pause the video. What do you think I have to do this time? How is this one different from the one I just did? Okay, so the key difference between this one and the one we did before was that it's not very easy to get from 100 to 360. It's super easy to get from 36 to 360, but it's not that easy to get from 100 to 360. So this is where you need to employ the strategies we used in the starter. So the first task you did, we can find a middle ground. We can find a middle number. So maybe we could find 10. So I have to divide by 10, then multiply by 36 or something like that. But there is one way of going straight from 100 to 360. What do you think we could do to get straight from 100 to 360? Pause the video. Okay, so we can do it in one step, but if you found it easier to do it in 2 steps, that's also fine. But the one thing that we could do to get from 100 to 360 is multiplied by 3.6. That means to find out the degrees for each of these categories, I need to multiply the frequency by 3.6, because that's what I did. I multiplied the total frequency by 3.6 to get to the total degrees. So I need to do the same thing to each of the categories. All we're doing is finding out what proportion of the circle we need for crisps. How many degrees do we need for crisps? How many degrees do we need for chocolate? And so on and so forth. Okay, so I multiply each of these by 3.6 and I get these values, and then I plot my pie chart and it looks like that. Okay, so before we finish off, we're going to put all of our skills together. So being able to find the degrees, and then we're going to use that information to actually plot a proper pie chart. So let's have a look at our whiteboard. So here it is. Here's our whiteboard, and we're going to try and, this is some year groups and then the frequency of people in the year group. So it might be the people who bought pizzas on a Thursday. Okay, so the people who bought pizzas on a Thursday. So this is the year groups here. And then we got the frequencies here, and we're trying to work out the degrees. So the first thing we're going to do is total up our frequencies. So the first thing we're going to do is total up our frequencies. So I'm just going to grab a different colored pencil. So I got a different colored pen, and we're going to total up our frequencies. So if I add all of these numbers up, I get 90. So I know that there are 90 people were counted, 90 people were measured. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is, I know I need to get to 360 degrees. That's what I know I need to get to. So how do I get from 90 to 360? Well, to get from 90 to 360, so to get from here to here, I times by 4. And that's what I'm going to need to do to each one of these values to work out my degree. So I just multiply each one of these values by 4, and that will get me to my degrees. So I'm going to do 15 times 4, which is 60. You got 60 degrees. We're going to do 18 times 4, which is 72. 40 times 4, which is 160. 5 times 4, which is 20. And 12 times 4, which is 48. So I just need to do these degrees on this pie chart. So to do that, I'm going to grab my protractor. Here. And I'm going to plot the first point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the center of my protractor. So that point right there, I'm going to put that on the center of my pie chart. So there we go. Line it up. Make sure that bottom line is on there. If you are struggling with this and you're not quite sure what to do, I suggest you go and watch our video on measuring angles. That will be really helpful. Okay, and I'm going to go to 60 degrees, and I just draw a little dot to tell me where it is. There it is. That's where 60 degrees is. And then I use my protractor, sort of like a ruler, and I draw in my 60 degree angle. there is 60 degrees there, and I can label this as year 7. Okay, so I've done the year 7s. I now need to do the 72 degrees. Now, I'm not going to start from my starting position. I don't need to go from the starting position. I'm going to go from where year 7 finishes to do my year 8. Okay, so from when year 7 finishes, that's where I'm going to draw my year 8. And I need to go 72 degrees. So once again, I take that dot there and I put it on the center. Line it up, make sure that the bottom line of my protractor, is on my circle. Go all the way around to 72. There's 70. 72 is about here. That's where 72 is. And once again, I use it as a ruler to join them up. Like so. Okay? And I can call this year 8. All right, now I'm going to do the rest I'm going to do the rest of them. I'm just going to speed this part up and I'm just going to do the rest of them. So what I have done there is completed that table to help you out, so you understand how to complete the table, but also how to plot a pie chart. Remember, the key thing to remember from this is that we do not, once we've used our first starting one, we start from where the second category from where the first category ended. Okay, we start the second category from where the first category ended, and that's the key thing to remember. We start the third category from where the second category ended, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now we're just going to go back to our PowerPoint just to summarize what we've done this lesson. So these are the key things to remember. Okay, pie charts represent data proportionally. Okay, it tells you how much of the data proportionally. That's what pie charts are for. You can see them very clearly in the pie chart. Okay, we need to find out the total frequency, and then we need to go from the total frequency to 360 degrees. So how can we get from however many people we had to 360 degrees? What do we need to multiply by? What do we need to divide by? Okay, and the last one, we need to know the degrees for each category before we can plot the pie chart. That's really important. Now, if you got to the point where you were like, sir, I can figure out how many degrees I need, I'm just really struggling with drawing the pie chart, I can't plot a pie chart very well. So here's what I think you need to do. You need to go and watch our videos on measuring angles, because that will help you to measure angles. And once you are comfortable with measuring angles, and you can measure angles quite easily and quite efficiently, then drawing pie charts is super easy, because if you know the angles, you just measure them and draw them in. Okay, so go off and have a go at working through some pie chart drawing with Mr. Amerson, so go and watch his videos. If you're super confident, you can go on Dr. Foster Corbett Maths. You go and be productive, and I'll see you in the next video.